Okay. Welcome to another fabulous episode of the Milli Fox Show. Today, I have this beautiful guest, Emma Tynan. I'm so excited to have this conversation. I'm going to introduce you to her, and then we're just going to dive right into a beautifully authentic, free-flowing conversation around channeling and using your voice and visibility and all these things. So, Emma. Who is Emma? Emma mentors women to become luminary, uncover their power, and claim their legacy through owning the power of their voice. Through her work as a business coach, channel, and speaker, she's helped thousands of entrepreneurs, visionaries, healers, and coaches get their businesses in the spotlight, raise their rates, and own their unique gifts as a way to create global impact. Through her lifelong study of spirituality, energetic healing, and over 10 years working with global brands, celebrity clients, and small businesses, she has discovered that the key to creating a real impact and business growth is by combining her energetic communication and visibility strategies with deep healing work. Now, isn't that a beautiful description of, new paradigm, feminine leadership and entrepreneurship with getting shit done? Right? I feel like that's where your worlds collide, isn't it? Is that
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's that beautiful middle ground of, oh, I just got effortless attainment when you're in your flow and you're honoring your gifts and you're
Yeah.
honoring your calling. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's still and that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not doing anything, right? This is
It's
I feel
not
like
about it's not about that at all. It's about you're very much doing the work when you commit to the path of following the calling on your life, because I say this over and over, that your greatest gifts are wrapped within your deepest wounds, and you need to go into the underworld and do the work that's necessary to excavate them, and that is the work. That's the work.
so the magic is in the mess, right? I've heard that
Yeah.
expression.
Yeah.
Magic is in the mess. So, okay, so let's start a little bit, let's go a little bit further back here. What Tell us a bit about your journey. What brought you to this point where now you yourself are so highly visible in terms of your gifts, your channeling abilities, your the psychic aspects of you, all of that stuff? Because that wasn't something that you just dove into right away. This was something that you brought forth and cultivated. So I'd love to hear more about that journey, the story that brought you to where you are now.
Oof. How far back do you want me to go?
Right? It's a lifetime always,
It's
isn't
a
it?
lifetime, and the shortened version is I knew who I was before the age of 7. I knew who I was when I was 4. I knew who I was. I knew what I was seeing, what I was
So
hearing, what I
when did you
knew.
forget? When did you deny it?
I intentionally shut it down around the age of 11, and between the age of 11 and 28 went off on, I took the journey. I took the journey. And the breaking point was a pretty extreme mental health breakdown in my late 20s. And I had chronic anxiety. I used to pull my hair out. I used to drink a lot. And I had normalized my coping strategies, right? As we do when we're deep in it,
Yes.
I'd normalized my coping strategies. It was just
Yeah.
normal. And I was surrounded by people who were just they were the same, right? So we'd normalized all our pain and our coping strategies and way of dealing with it until I couldn't deal with it anymore. And in May 2012, I found myself sleeping on the floor of my best friend's flat in London on an air mattress that would deflate in the middle of the
Oh,
night. We've all, right? Those air mattresses. I know a lot of people
yep.
can relate to the air mattress,
Oh, yeah.
to the ground zero. And, it's not a sob story. I always feel there's an element of me that feels like slightly self-conscious talking about, my 20s. Like, our 20s is, we process a lot of stuff in our 20s. It really is the time where we make the big mistakes to move into our 30s so we can assimilate the lessons. But, I'd been on antidepressants for over 10 years. And looking back now, I knew that I was doing everything I possibly could to suppress that calling on my life, which was my spiritual gifts, channeling, my psychic abilities, my healing activations. And even now, the more and more I step into them and own them, the more and more I realize that the potency of my work is in that stuff that I knew always belonged to me, which is such a catch-22, right? Because you go out on the journey thinking you need to go and find something, when in fact it's like, it's the thing that's been within you the whole time.
Yeah, that's how it always is, right? It's always inside of us, and we don't know how to get it out. We don't know how to excavate it. And when I hear stories like yours where you talk about, these gifts you had as a child and then spend a period of time denying them, I'm always curious to know, did you consciously deny the gifts, or were they swept out of your conscious awareness for a period of time and something had them resurface for you? Because some people I know that they have these gifts that try to bubble up, and they just consciously say, no, I don't want to deal with this, I don't want to look at this. But then for other people, I think, because I believe, and I think you also believe, that we all have access to channeling abilities and psychic abilities. For some it's stronger than others, for some it's more at the forefront, maybe easier to access. But for someone like myself, for example, like, it was totally out of my conscious awareness that that these things were even trying to come through me. So for you, was it like that, or was it more a conscious, like, shutting out?
It feels, looking back, it was more, I just became more and more in my body and in reality. Like the commitment to the physical world of, oh, okay, it's not, nobody else can see it, so it mustn't be real. That was
Right.
basically it. Nobody else can hear it, so it's not happening. And without, I didn't really speak to anyone about it. We had a really good family friend. We still do, Patricia, and she still is a healer and a reflexologist, and she was always into angels and crystals, and I feel like she saw it in me. And I used to go into her little reflexology place that she used to have at her house, and I used to think, oh my God, this place is like magical, this little room with all the essential oils and everything. It had that haven quality, like, oh, there was a remembering, within me in that space. Like I said, it wasn't so much a moment where I shut it down, but it was that I didn't have the confidence at that age to stand in my conviction of, just because I can see it, it's real, right? It was, nobody else was saying that it was, nobody else could validate what I was seeing. So I was like, okay,
Right. So it's denial. Like, it's a bit of denial then. It's just like,
yeah,
this mess.
it's denial and self-preservation in a way. I remember though I remember when I turned 30, I had a very like visceral I was living with my now husband in Paris, and I was working at an international organization briefly before. That was like the last like job I did. I used to work in the fashion industry before that and had this, glamorous life in London, and glamorous in inverted commas. And I remember having the light started to really shine through those cracks when I turned 30. A visceral moment of awakening, and there's something more here.
Saturn return.
Yeah, right. Saturn return, exactly. There was a remembering starting to happen, like a sliver of light compared to where I am now. Mm-hmm. But that trajectory propelled me to where I am now. That was really the beginning of it.
Okay. So it started to show itself again to you, and then you obviously at some point made a choice to pay attention to it.
Yeah. To pay attention to it because I had to. I was, even when we were living in Paris, this was 2013, I was really suffering with anxiety and depression. It was even when I think back now, it was physical agony. I was in physical emotional agony from it. And I used to get intense migraines as well. Intense migraines every week. And it was just, I was doing everything I could to shut everything down. And I had to walk away. I remember we had that decision where we were like, okay, it's kind of time. We only planned to go to Paris for 3 months, and we were there almost 2 years. And it was time to leave and to move back to the UK. We were planning this kind of like American odyssey that we embarked on in 2017. The beginning of that was like 2015. We thought we were going to move here, and we had a visa thing. So we got delayed, not really delayed. We just had to go to the countryside for a bit and recoup and make sense of life back in the English countryside. So we lived in 27 places in 8 years. We have moved so much, I can't even.
I thought I held a record. I don't even know how many times I've moved, but we move a lot. Like it was like at least once a year, sometimes more, for basically my entire life.
Yeah. So it's hard to keep up, right? But the movement was part of all of that as well. Constantly moving was part of the strategy as well, to avoid settling, to avoid putting in roots, to avoid looking at things long enough, because a house move is a large enough thing to distract you, right? It's like, yeah, interesting.
Yeah, making me think now. Okay, so you've got your trip on the horizon to the US. Or is this when you're already in the US, when you're in your physical, your agony, your depression?
Yes, it was pretty bad. We moved them from the British countryside. We were waiting on US visas, which didn't materialize. And then we left the countryside, which I didn't realize how much I'd love it, but we'd been craving that so much after living in Paris, which is, a small apartment with terrible air pollution, as beautiful as Paris is. It's a very busy city. And it was all agony. It was all, I didn't know a day without this pain. I mean, this is what I can say that honestly, hand on my heart, until after my first was born in 2017. And I had this big awakening. In the midst of all of that, we lived in London, got pregnant with him in 2016, moved to the US when I was 5 months pregnant with my 2 pugs, and my husband gave birth here 4 months later. That was crazy. And in the midst of all of this, I had been running my business, because I started my business in 2014.
Which business did you start?
This business. We're dancing all over the place, but this business was, the first seed was planted when we were living in that countryside cottage after Paris. I knew I couldn't go back to life to corporate. I couldn't do it anymore. So
you're referencing a business coaching or a coaching business.
coaching, yeah, coaching. And it started off really slowly. Then when we left the countryside, moved to London. All of this was happening in the background as well, of the moving and the visas and and my business started to pick up. It was great. I was booking clients. I was, in a way, I was super tapped in that, in those initial seeds of those cracks of light. I knew, I was like, oh, the business it's got this spiritual element. It's like this spiritual life coaching element. It wasn't full out. It's not the way it was now. But it had started to gain traction. I was starting to book clients, and it was starting to grow. I started to do my one-to-one programs and group coaching. And as I said, then we moved to the US, had my first baby in the midst of all of that. And then, boom, everything kind of came down around me. It was like I was just forced at that moment when he was born to deal with it all. Why I had been repressing it, complex, painful, familial stuff, and deep wounding, that I'd done to myself, that I'd done to other people. I didn't realize that, when I didn't expect that when I had a baby. I didn't realize it was going to unleash a hand grenade of stuff that needed to be dealt with.
It really just rips the cover right off you, doesn't it?
Yes. Like, had to deal with it. And I remember that was after I had been processing this. My business had gone to zero for the first time since I started it. I just knew I couldn't keep doing it the way I was doing it. I couldn't keep pushing myself the way I was pushing myself. I couldn't keep using those strategies. And I couldn't keep hiding. And I remember one day I was walking, pushing Arlo in his stroller, and having this realization that I was literally placing these wounds inside of him if I didn't deal with them. This wound of like silence and not being myself and not speaking my truth. And I was like, oh, I'm teaching him this silence. And I didn't want to do that. And I was building my business again back in nap time. And I only had like 90 minutes, right? You know the way it is with little babies. Yeah. It was like 7 months when I kind of started like, okay, come on, Emma, this is it. And I had been seeing clients when he would sleep in the evening after 7, and then in nap time I would do all like my marketing. And I just started to press go live. I just started to go live and just share who I was and my truth and what I stand for. And I did that every day. During the week, 10, 15 minutes. And then my business exploded. It just exploded. In nap time, I hit like 160K in 7 months just doing that, just in nap time.
So where were you going live?
I was going live in groups on my business page, which is all kind of changed now, right? Most people go live on their Instagram, and I've kind of shifted to the Instagram and in my groups. But I mastered this ability to go live, and people wanted to buy from me by going live. And I thought, oh shit, there's something in here. And this was where I developed my own methodology of how to go live, to sell, like how to speak your truth, how to fully be yourself as a way for people to see you, which is all we want. Like we walk, and it seems so simple, right? It's like the simple thing nobody wants you to know, because everyone wants to sell you the complex strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to say the complex strategy. Nobody wants to say, by the way, it's like you can really just be yourself. You can really just show up and speak your truth and tell people your story and activate them with your energy and your belief and what you stand for. And people will really see you. And when they really see you, they want to buy from you. You know? It's not it was a revelation. And I
Yeah.
started to teach it to others and I was like, "Oh shit. Wow. This is
There's
a thing."
so much fear there, right? Around being seen. There's so much fear around showing that vulnerability, right? That's a huge part of my teaching around, who are you? Authenticity. And then the vulnerability piece, right? Because the vulnerability is a prerequisite for connection.
Yeah.
And it's through that showing up vulnerably in your authentic self that you're able to connect with people. It's like one of the biggest revelations for me in my business was dancing on my Instagram stories. And people just went wild about it. And I was like, what is this? I'm just being a goof. Like, I'm just being silly here. But I would get messages every single day about it. I wasn't selling anything through my dancing at that point. But it's just incredible the connection that can be had. So let's dive in deeper a little bit to like authenticity and the self, because this is also a fundamental question that I ask all of my clients and in all of my programs is like, let's get in touch with who are you, who you are. Ask yourself, who am I? So how do you start to excavate that? How do you start to really be honest with yourself about who you are if you have been hiding? Because a lot of the times it's not that we're just hiding from others, and so we've been hiding from ourselves.
Oh, that's such a good question. That's been a huge theme for me. As I said to you, I was feeling very truthful before we got on here.
Yes.
And the irony of it is that that's been my biggest journey fully, and it is right now fully seeing myself for everything that I've achieved, everything I have done, everything, everything. My business pays the mortgage on my home, this like dream home, like that for me, like 15 years ago. And I'm saying that just because it's like I'm still trying to see that I've done that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're so focused on the next thing. We're so focused on the next thing that we never stop to realize that, in those early days, if you're in the early days of your business, sometimes like that achievement for me, even just talking from my own experience of doing that one live stream when Arlo was napping, that was a win.
Mm-hmm.
That was a win. You did it, Emma. You did it. You showed up. You showed up for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You spoke your truth. You did it not for anyone else, but for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the big shift is well. It's like we have to do it for ourselves first before we're doing it for anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only then when you can start to see, it's like that's the question inwards. Like, why are you doing it for your why? Why do you feel compelled to do and create the things you want to create? What is it coming out of? It's, these are things that I take to my journal. Even last night, I'm like constantly with the journal, right? For that, to try and get that, reframe and to make lists. It has to be an intentional practice. You have to see yourself before other people will see you.
Yeah.
You have to see your gifts before other people can see them.
Let's go back to that idea of hiding from the self, right? Not just hiding your success from yourself, but like hiding portions of who you really are from yourself, like your gifts and your strengths and things like this, right? Like, because you you see yourself in a certain light and you look around and you find the evidence, right? That's always how we do it. We look around, we use our five senses, we find the evidence in our physical 3D reality of who we are, right? We're looking around at like the hats we wear, the roles we have. But there's something that's so much deeper there, right? There's something that's so much deeper there inside every single one of us. So with yourself or with your clients in your programs, how do you help people tap into the truth of who they are?
How do I help people tap into the truth of who they are? So the best way I give of describing this is, I call it the unbecoming, okay? Because we're all so self-propelled culturally to become, to become it's like that outward energy.
Mm-hmm.
And the reframe is the unbecoming. It is, you come into my spaces and you unbecome. You must take, this is what we do, layer by layer, we excavate. Is it comfortable? No. Not even in the slightest. Will you have an awakening? Yes, you'll have a spiritual awakening. Will you remember who you are? That you're a soul beyond time, that you're eternal, that you've lived so many lifetimes before you even got here and to incarnate, and you've come here to learn another lesson. You've come here to experience humanness and beauty and to play in this realm, joy. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot to learn in this unbecoming. It's that it's an inward place. And when you come into these these spaces as well that I hold in everything that I do, all my writing, everything is, yes, I can teach you like frameworks, like I said, around visibility, but all of it is propelled and amplified by what you find within yourself. Like, I give you the tools, create the activations, open up your channels, open up space for you to fully see yourself and open up to receive that wisdom, that awakening for yourself. And then you see it and then you feel it. It's not, you can't intellectualize this stuff. Like we understand this, right? On an intellectual level, like, oh yeah, I'm eternal. No, but do you know? Like, do you feel it? Do you see it? Do you not? And until you can feel that, you can't take it out to other people. You can't take it out into the world. You can't take it on your live streams, your stories, into your writing, into the way you design your programs. You can't take that energy with you till you've fully experienced it, realized it, activated it for yourself. And that is what creates this magnetism to your work, to your brand, to your truth, to your legacy, because it's the thing we walk around every day craving to see in other people so we can see it in ourselves. Yeah. We long for it. We long to connect with people who embody that essence so we can touch it. It's the only way we recognize it as home. We recognize it as home.
Yeah, it's a connection to truth. It's a connection to the source of what we are, right?
Yeah.
Completely and totally. So for people on this journey right now who are listening, who are interested in like deepening their connection with self, are there questions they should ask themselves? Like, how can they get into their journal? What kind of questions can they ask themselves?
I feel like it always brings me back to joy, right? This state of joy and ecstasy that we're meant to be. That's the North Star. Yes, shit happens, right? Life, that's just life. But how much joy is in your everyday life, how much reverence, how much devotion. When was the last time you stopped to honor that voice within yourself, or you stopped to appreciate? And it's so trite. Even as I say that, I can feel like, God, it's so corny, but it's so truthful. It is so truthful, where you can just stop and just marvel at the reverence around us, and sunsets and just beauty. Oh, that's a whole other thread I could go down as well. Like
Yeah.
beauty. Like,
Yep.
do we stop? Are you stopping to marvel at the beauty of our human experience that we see in our gardens, in our kids? It's like that will just bring you right back. It brings you right back. And
It's
you can,
such
yeah,
Yeah, it's such a state of presence and
yeah,
pleasure. It's really embracing pleasure, because pleasure is that present moment of reverence, like
yeah,
of appreciation, of gratitude for what we can experience, and that connection we have to all of that beauty, because it's all of the beauty is created through the same power that we have within us to create.
yeah.
And that's the deepest connection, right? That's the deepest
And
connection.
and that's the slipstream of effortless. When I say that about effortless, that's the energy of it. It's not without effort, because you have to do the work to even get to that place where you can see and appreciate that. But it's the thing, we run from that. We don't want someone to give us that as a strategy, right? There's our ego is going to be like, no, it's got to be hard, or I need that system, or I need that, or I need that, or I need that. It's, yes, this frameworks, but the foundations and the truth, all of that. That's what this is. That's what this is.
Yeah,
That's the path of co-creation and manifesting and receivership.
yeah, those are the things that are the prerequisites for any strategy, like the typical strategy. When we hear the word strategy, we think of, like masculine, systematized, step by step, blah, blah, blah. Those things can work. They can work, right? But maybe they won't work if you're not, if it doesn't feel aligned for you, maybe that will prevent it from working for you. Or maybe it will work and it'll feel like shit, right?
It'll work to a certain point, right? We've
Yeah.
all been there. I've tried all the stuff. My clients, like, I've seen it over, gone, yeah, it can work, but it's only going to work to a point, or it may not work at all. Exactly like you said. Yeah.
So that's being really honest with yourself. And then the work is the prerequisite for the things to fall into place, for the strategies that you do choose to implement, the masculine style of strategy, for it to actually work and feel good and be in alignment and actually like take off and explode. Like when your business can really scale on like a feminine energy level and feel that, like you said, ease and effortless. When it feels that way, it's because it's all done in alignment. And that
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily mean that there's zero element of like hard work. And the hard work isn't necessarily always, the journaling and the emotional stuff. Sometimes it is pumping out some copy. Sometimes it is, doing the actual physical deeds, but it doesn't have to feel like forcing energy, striving energy, desperate, proving. It doesn't have to feel like any of those things. It gets to feel in integrity.
Yeah.
I think that's the clarification around that, because
Yeah.
I know that there's so much confusion around it, because in this world of like the spirituality and the feminine energy business, it's very much like lean back, surrender, allow, receive. But then we get confused about like how do we walk the line between the feminine and masculine? How do we know how much doing in action versus how much leaning back and trusting, and how do we marry those things together, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to hide the fact at all that I have like a team and I use Facebook ads and I've got a funnel and I've got all that stuff.
I want to be really clear about it too.
Yeah, because it's like yeah, I have all of that, but like it's only used as a way to support my truth. It's used as a way to support it, to spread the message. Like you can pull all of that back. If you took all of that away, you would still find my truth. You would still find me. You wouldn't find something different. It's all there. And I think that's the big distinction. Does it feel good that, you know, I have automation in my business and it's totally aligned with my mission and my message, everything down to the copy and the words. Hell yeah, it feels good. I've got a 2.5-year-old and a 4-year-old, you know, and I'm running a business. Yeah, it feels good to have all of those systems and structures.
Structure.
It's all part of, you know, it's all done with my own intuitive strategy, and it's all done in a way that feels good and supports my truth and my message and what I'm here to do, because the programs and everything that I offer are all me. There's nothing artificial in any way.
So it really comes back to self-trust. Another concept that I talk about endlessly is self-trust. And I had, you know, Jacqueline Shaw on the podcast as well. And I know you two have worked together both ways. Right?
Both ways.
And we had this conversation about self-trust, and I was asking her about, you know, opening her channels and all that good stuff that you guys have worked on together. And we came back to self-trust again and again. So I'd love to hear your take on self-trust in business, and then we can move into like the channeling portion of it a little bit if you're interested in.
Yeah, sure. I think actually for me, in the last, I would say 2 weeks, I've even moved away from using the words self-trust for myself, because even self-trust has a pointed energy that it's on us, right? That we must trust ourselves, when in fact we are an extension of source energy, and we don't ever doubt for 1 second that the sun won't rise, and we don't ever doubt that we'll have a dawn. We just know. And that's it. It's deepening a devotional practice to surrendering my ego, surrendering the fear, offering it up. This is not true. It's like, you know, that's A Course in Miracles is like, it's like, if it feels awful, if you are in fear, if you are in shadow, this is not real. This is shadow. The ultimate truth is that there is only love.
Yeah.
Only love. Only source.
Got the book on my...
You got the book.
The book on my... I've got the law.
There, she's got it all.
It's on my desk.
Yeah, this is it. It's like I don't doubt. Oh, my head is going crazy. I feel like that's...
What's coming through there?
What's coming through? I know. My guides are saying it's the only thing you need to remind people of.
Yeah.
But there's no need to even trust ourselves, because ourselves is not even. This human isn't. This is not. We are temporal, but when we're temporal and also eternity. So we don't even need to go into self-trust. We have to devote ourselves to surrendering to our truth, which is love.
Truth is love, and love is all there is. And I recently had this reframe around confidence, because confidence is a knowing, right? When we have confidence in something, we know, like we have a knowing of either how it works or how it's going to work. we have confidence in it, right? So having confidence in ourselves is a deep inner knowing in that same way. And the wellspring of confidence is the deepest inner knowing of that connection. Of that connection that is a wellspring of power and confidence. Really, that's what it is. It's like that connection is the trust. That connection is everything.
Yeah.
And it's proven over and over again. I read it in so many different places. I read like a crazy person. I read lots and lots of books, and the idea comes up over and over again, is that the people who have the most hope, I was reading into the concept of hopefulness. Hope comes from the connection, the spirituality.
Yeah.
To knowing that we're all intrinsically connected, and there's nothing we can do about that other than lean into it, and
lean in, like fully surrender. Because it's beyond the self. And that was the reframe even for me like I said, the last 2 weeks is all about just even removing the self out of it. And being a channel. That's it, being a voice.
Allowing it to come through.
Allowing it to come through and surrendering to it. Surrender to the flow of it.
I love what Marianne Williamson says. I can't remember where I've read this, but I'm sure she's said it or written it several times so Marianne Williamson writes about the Course in Miracles, for anybody who doesn't know it, the book we were just referencing. She says that it's arrogant to believe that you should have the answers as your small egoic self. It's arrogant to believe you should know how to achieve whatever it is you're aiming to achieve. It's arrogant to think that you should be able to do it alone. And when I heard that word, arrogant, I was like, wow, what a flip. Like, you don't think of it as arrogant in the mainstream. It's like noble, the struggle, the whatever. But it's in fact quite arrogant, because you are one ray from the sun, right? Think of the power of the sun. You are the ray. You are the sun. The ray is directly coming from it. But that one ray on its own should never think that it could heat an entire planet. You know what I'm saying? So it's like recognizing, surrendering to the power of the whole, and knowing, yes, you are a part of it, but you're never meant to do it alone.
You're never meant to do it alone. I mean, it took me a long time to learn that one in business and mothering.
Yeah, that's the society we're in right now, right? It's like that noble struggle of like silent suffering, and it's so wrong.
It's so wrong. It's so wrong. And the idea that, right, that even, I don't know, it feels important to mention that as well. Like when I used to look at established women in businesses, like it made it all look so effortless, not realizing that there's like a whole team. Like I have a whole team. Like it would be ridiculous for me to not even say that. Like the amount of help I have is it's insane. From where I was, like there's no way I would have believed that it would take this level of villageness to make the whole thing work. And it's analogous for the one, for the source, for being the channel. Like it takes so much more.
It really does.
Than
and
us.
Taking a moment at this moment to acknowledge the incredible privilege that comes with the ability to build that team too.
Oh yeah,
so much privilege there.
Yeah, so much. Yeah.
And taking a moment of gratitude for it also as well, because we build it intentionally. We cultivate that. It's a lot to build a team, to feel worthy of building this support around you, right? And then just taking the moment of gratitude to say like, wow, I did this, I built this, I'm worthy of this. And it's all the way it was meant to be, because we were all meant to support one another. We were creating pathways of support.
And I think it's like, I think as well, I realized that so starkly, even just, last year and with the pandemic and everything, like we're hardwired. We need each other, you know, like Zoom is great, but my God, do we need each other? Do we need connection? We need each other. We're so hardwired. It's been the hardest thing, has not being, you know, like I said, I'm going to see my family. I haven't seen my sister in 2 years. It's like that separation is like, it's, we need we need that connection, but just like you said as well, we need to be able to, and I'm learning, try and step back and see myself the way I even wrote it last night in my journal, you know, like I don't see myself the way other people see me, the way God sees me, the way source sees me. Don't see myself. How can I, and it feels like a question for, you know, people's journals, like how can I see myself the way God, source, the universe sees me? How can I start to position myself at a different vantage point of myself?
Perception.
And yeah,
That's the definition of a miracle, right? Is a change of perception,
yeah, the holy
right?
instant. Yeah,
Yeah, so this is kind of a full circle thing here. It's like the connection. We are hardwired for this connection. We need it. We really do. And in order to feel connected, we must feel like we belong, right? And a prerequisite for belonging is authenticity and vulnerability, right? Because we have to show up as who we really are in order to feel fully seen so that we can belong, right?
yeah,
So when people try to fit in, it actually does a disservice to belonging and connection. So if you're not doing the work to excavate your truth and who you really are, you're going to feel like a fraud. You're going to feel like no one knows who you really are, that no one sees you, that no one really knows the real you, and you won't feel connected to people. You won't feel like that sense of deep belonging, which also, when you don't feel like a sense of belonging, you also feel cut off from source too. Like it's just a whole big full circle moment there.
yeah. It's like it's just full ego shadow, right? It's just being trapped in that layer upon layer upon layer, and nobody can see you. You can't see them. You can't feel source. You
Yeah.
just, yeah,
And oftentimes people think ego is like that egotistical, but it's
yeah.
not. Ego is small self too. Ego is like playing small, is hiding.
Oh, hiding. Yeah, that's like the biggest thing I deal with my clients. No matter how established and like famous they are, down to women who are just like starting out in their businesses, that layer, taking off that next layer, is that's the same journey for everyone. How can you give more of yourself to the world, and when you let that unfold, boom, miracles.
Yeah, totally. So, as we're coming to a close here, I'd love to help people take another step with you, take a layer off, take another layer off, get to know you better. So, where can people find you on the interwebs?
Oh, the interwebs. They can Google me. I'm very Googleable now on all the platforms. On Instagram at Emma Tynan _ at emmatynan.com. And, you know, so you can find details of my hybrid mastermind amplified and my one-to-one work. So reach out.
Yes, absolutely. I'll put everything in the show notes for everybody to go and find it easily, and not have to send you away to Google. We won't do that to you.
Oh yeah, don't. You don't need to go.
But the last question that I like to ask every guest is, what are you currently manifesting?
Ooh, that's a good one. To see myself the way God sees me.
Yay. That is a very expansive thing to do, to manifest. Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Emma. This has been such a beautiful, winding conversation that touched on so many important things that I would recommend listening to this episode more than once. Because really lots of gems there. And the more you listen to something, the more you can hear it in new ways and experience a miracle, a change of perception, right?
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Thank you
And
so much.
maybe we'll have you back again another time.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I would love to. Thank you for having me.
Okay. Catch you later.
Bye.